Hi, my name is Grandma Betty, and this is Grandma Betty's Recipes. Before grocery stores started selling $60 charcuterie boards and 12-ingredient energy bites, American families were making snacks in their own kitchens that were cheaper, tastier, and honestly, a whole lot more fun. Snacks that came together in 10 minutes with ingredients you already had sitting in the pantry.
Snacks that kids would run home from school for. We've forgotten almost every single one of them. And today, we're bringing them all back. 1. Celery with peanut butter and raisins. Ants on a log. If you grew up in the 1970s, someone put this in front of you at least once a week and called it a snack. A stalk of celery, a ribbon of peanut butter pressed into the groove, and a row of raisins sitting on top like tiny passengers on a green canoe. Schools served it. Mothers made it. Church daycare programs practically built their entire snack rotation around it. The beauty of Ants on a Log was its combination of crunch, sweetness, and protein that kept kids satisfied between meals without costing more than a few cents. Families who couldn't afford much could always afford celery and peanut butter. And somehow, that simple little snack made children feel taken care of. 2. Crackers with squeezed cheese. Now, in the 1970s, the invention of processed cheese in a pressurized can was genuinely considered one of the great achievements of the modern age. Squeezing a little orange ribbon of cheese product directly onto a Ritz cracker was not considered lazy. It was considered efficient, sophisticated even. Adults served these at cocktail parties alongside their Harvey Wallbangers and called it entertaining. Kids ate them after school standing in front of the open refrigerator because the can didn't actually need refrigeration, but the kitchen felt like the right place to be. The squiggly little cheese rosette you could pipe onto the cracker was a matter of personal pride. Some people had real technique. 3. Deviled eggs.
Nobody in the 1970s threw a party, potluck, church gathering, or backyard cookout without a plate of deviled eggs appearing on the table. Hard-boiled eggs halved, the yolks mashed with mayonnaise, yellow mustard, and a little vinegar, then piped back into the whites and dusted with paprika. That paprika was non-negotiable. It was the finishing touch that told everyone you knew what you were doing.
Families kept a special deviled egg plate, usually avocado green or harvest gold, with little oval indentations designed specifically for this purpose. If someone broke a white when they were peeling, they ate it in the kitchen before the platter ever made it to the table. That was the rule. 4. Popcorn with browned butter. Long before a movie theater, popcorn came in a bag you could microwave in 3 minutes. Families made popcorn in a heavy pot on the stovetop. And the 1970s version didn't just use melted butter, it used browned butter. You'd melt butter in a small saucepan, letting it cook past the melting point until the milk solids turned golden and the whole kitchen smelled like toasted hazelnuts. Poured over a bowl of just popped kernels with a generous shake of salt. This was an entirely different experience from modern microwave popcorn. Nutty, rich, and deeply savory in a way that no artificial butter flavoring has ever come close to replicating. Kids would argue over who got the kernels at the bottom of the bowl that had soaked up the most butter. That was the prize. 5. Cinnamon toast. White bread, real butter, white sugar, and cinnamon. That is the entire recipe. That is all it took to make something that generations of children considered one of the great pleasures of a Saturday morning. You'd butter the bread first while it was still hot from the toaster, watching the butter melt into the surface. Then came the sugar, shaken from a spoon across the whole slice. Then the cinnamon, dusted over top. Some families mixed the cinnamon and sugar together in a little jar and kept it next to the toaster permanently, which is honestly a level of organizational preparedness I admire deeply. Eaten with a glass of cold milk, cinnamon toast was the 1970s answer to every pastry breakfast that came after it, and in my opinion, it won. 6. Peanut butter balls.
When sugar was abundant but money was not, 1970s mothers turned to peanut butter balls as a no-bake solution that felt like a real treat. You'd combine peanut butter with powdered sugar and a little butter, rolling the mixture into small spheres that set up firm in the refrigerator. Some families dipped them in melted chocolate chips, creating something that tasted dangerously close to a Reese's cup, but cost a fraction of the price.
Church cookbooks from this era are absolutely full of variations. Some added crushed graham crackers, some rolled them in coconut, some added a handful of oats. Whatever was in the pantry became part of the recipe. The result was always the same, a small, dense, sweet bite that made children absolutely lose their minds. 7. Crackers with cream cheese and jelly. This snack operated on the same principle as a cheesecake, but required about 45 seconds to prepare. A plain cracker, a thick smear of cream cheese, and a small spoonful of grape jelly or strawberry preserves sitting right on top. The tang of the cream cheese against the sweetness of the jelly created a combination that somehow tasted far more sophisticated than its 3 ingredients had any right to. This was also a snack that appeared at women's club meetings and bridge parties, placed on a little tray alongside sliced fruit. In the 1970s, anything served on a tray automatically counted as elegant. Cream cheese and jelly crackers understood this assignment completely. 8. Banana pudding in a cup. Not the kind you baked in a dish with meringue on top. The everyday 1970s version was simpler and honestly just as good. Instant vanilla pudding made up with cold milk and left to set in the refrigerator, then layered in a glass or paper cup with sliced bananas and vanilla wafers. The wafers would soften slightly against the pudding, turning from crisp cookies into something that had the texture of soft cake. Kids ate these after school, and somehow they always felt like a reward for something, even if the only thing you'd done was arrive home. The beauty was that a single box of pudding and a bunch of bananas could feed the entire neighborhood for about 75 cents. 9. Cheese and crackers with pickle. The 1970s cheese and cracker plate was not the artisanal arrangement you see at modern dinner parties. This was a sleeve of Ritz crackers, a block of Velveeta or sharp cheddar sliced into squares, and a jar of bread and butter pickles set in the middle of the kitchen table on a Sunday afternoon. While everyone watched football, the combination of salty cracker, mild or sharp cheese, and the sweet tang of the pickle created a snack that covered every flavor base simultaneously. Some families added sliced summer sausage to the plate when the budget allowed, turning a simple snack into something that felt nearly festive. This plate appeared at virtually every informal gathering this country hosted between 1970 and 1979. 10. Graham cracker and frosting sandwiches. Now, this one might be the most criminally underrated snack on this entire list, and I will stand behind that statement.
2 graham cracker sheets with a thick layer of canned frosting pressed between them, creating something that tasted like a homemade cookie without any of the baking. Vanilla frosting was the classic. Chocolate frosting was considered a bold move. Some children would eat the sandwich whole. Others would separate the crackers and lick the frosting first, which is a perfectly valid approach, and I refuse to hear otherwise.
Mothers made these for after-school snacks and packed them into lunch boxes where they'd soften slightly by noon, the frosting melting just enough into the crackers to turn the whole thing into a single unified flavor. 11. Corn chips with bean dip before salsa became the standard dip of the American snack table. Bean dip held the throne. Canned refried beans heated in a small saucepan with a shake of garlic powder and a squeeze of lemon juice, served warm in a bowl alongside a bag of Fritos corn chips. The dip was thick, earthy, and satisfying in a way that felt almost like a meal rather than a snack. Families in the 1970s were only just discovering Tex-Mex flavors through products like Old El Paso and Fritos, and bean dip felt exotic and familiar at the same time. Some families added a layer of shredded cheddar over the warm dip, which is an innovation I fully endorse. 12 pigs in a blanket. These little sausage-wrapped bites were the undisputed king of every 1970s party table. From New Year's Eve to the neighborhood Tupperware party to your cousin's graduation reception in the church basement. Cocktail sausages or cut hot dogs wrapped in strips of refrigerated crescent roll dough, then baked until golden and slightly puffed. They came out of the oven smelling like every good memory you've ever had. Served with yellow mustard for dipping, they disappeared from the plate before the hostess even made it back from the kitchen. The ratio of crispy, buttery pastry to savory sausage was perfect by design. Pillsbury knew exactly what they were doing when they put that crescent roll dough on the market, and 1970s home cooks knew exactly how to use it. 13. Fruit and marshmallow. Fluff dip apple slices, strawberries, grapes, banana chunks, and a bowl of marshmallow fluff sitting in the middle of the plate for dipping. This was the 1970s answer to the fruit platter, and it turned something healthy into something children would actually voluntarily eat without being asked twice. The fluff was sometimes mixed with cream cheese to give it more body, creating a dip that was thick, tangy, and sweet all at once. Church potlucks and school events frequently featured this because the cost was minimal and the crowd-pleasing factor was enormous. I personally believe that marshmallow fluff is one of the great unsung heroes of mid-century American cooking, and I will be discussing it at length with whoever will listen. 14. Saltine crackers with peanut butter and honey.
This was the snack that appeared on the counter when school let out and the weather turned cold. Saltine crackers spread with peanut butter, then drizzled with honey that pooled slightly in the dimples of the cracker surface. The combination of salty, sweet, nutty, and crisp created something that hit every taste receptor at once.
Working-class families kept all three ingredients on hand permanently because they were among the cheapest shelf-stable foods available. A sleeve of saltines cost 15 cents. A jar of peanut butter lasted a week. A bottle of honey lasted months. For almost no money at all, you could create a snack that felt genuinely satisfying and that children requested by name every single afternoon. 15. Chocolate-covered Ritz crackers. This snack lived in the border territory between dessert and snack and didn't much care which side it fell on. Ritz crackers dipped halfway into melted chocolate chips, then laid on wax paper to set. Some families sandwiched peanut butter between two crackers before dipping them, which transformed the whole operation into something that deserved its own category entirely. The contrast between the salty, buttery cracker and the sweet chocolate coating was genuinely inspired. These appeared on Christmas cookie trays, at bake sales, and on Sunday afternoon snack plates alike. They required no baking, minimal skill, and ingredients that cost almost nothing. The 1970s understood that the best treats aren't always the most complicated ones. 16. Chex Mix from scratch. Long before Chex Mix came in a bag at the gas station, it was a homemade project that filled the entire house with the smell of butter and Worcestershire sauce for 2 hours every holiday season. You'd combine multiple varieties of Chex cereal with mixed nuts, pretzels, and bagel chips in a giant roasting pan. Then toss the whole thing with melted butter, Worcestershire sauce, garlic powder, and seasoned salt. Into the oven it went at the lowest temperature, stirred every 15 minutes for an hour until every piece was coated and crispy and absolutely perfect. The recipe was printed right on the Chex cereal box, which is where 1970s families found a significant portion of their cooking inspiration. There was nothing wrong with that system. 17. Onion soup dip with potato chips. California dip, as it was known, was the snack that built the 1970s party circuit. 1 packet of Lipton onion soup mix stirred into a container of sour cream, then left in the refrigerator for at least an hour, so the dried onion flakes could soften and release their flavor into the cream. Served with ridged potato chips because ridged chips held more dip per bite, and the 1970s understood structural engineering when it came to snacking. This dip appeared at every single informal gathering in America between 1958 and 1989, every single one. If you attended a party during this era and there was no onion dip on the table, something had gone seriously wrong. 18. Frozen banana pops. Before frozen novelty, treats became a $12 item at the farmer's market. The frozen banana pop was the homemade summer snack that cost almost nothing and tasted like everything.
Ripe bananas peeled and cut in half, a popsicle stick pressed into the cut end, then dipped in melted chocolate chips and rolled in crushed peanuts or sprinkles before going into the freezer on a sheet of wax paper. 2 hours later, you had a frozen treat that rivaled anything you could buy from the ice cream truck. The banana would freeze into a dense, creamy block beneath the chocolate shell that cracked when you bit into it.
Children in the 1970s considered this a serious luxury. You were right. 19. Toast with cinnamon sugar butter. Different from cinnamon toast in one crucial way. This version involved mixing the cinnamon and sugar directly into softened butter before spreading it, creating a compound butter that melted evenly across the entire surface of the toast in one smooth golden layer. The butter carried the cinnamon and sugar into every corner, leaving no dry patches or uneven flavor distribution. It was a small but meaningful upgrade that made the whole experience more deliberate. Some families made a larger batch of the cinnamon butter and kept it in a small container in the refrigerator, ready to deploy on any toast, English muffin, or dinner roll that came within reach. This is the kind of practical kitchen wisdom that deserves to be passed down. 20. Deviled ham on crackers. The William Underwood Company had been making deviled ham in that little can with the red devil on the label since 1868, and by the 1970s, it had found its natural home as a snack spread. The spiced, finely ground ham mixture got scraped from the can and spread onto Ritz crackers or plain saltines, sometimes topped with a thin slice of pickle or a drop of hot sauce. The intense, savory, slightly spicy flavor of deviled ham was unlike anything else you could put on a cracker in under 30 seconds, which was exactly how long the 1970s was willing to spend on snack preparation. It was concentrated flavor for minimal effort, which is a principle I respect deeply. 21. No-bake chocolate oat cookies.
These were called preacher cookies in some regions and no-bake cookies in others, and they appeared on kitchen counters and church fellowship tables across America throughout the 1970s with the reliability of a natural law. You'd bring butter, sugar, cocoa powder, and milk to a rolling boil, cook it for exactly 1 minute, then pull it off the heat and stir in peanut butter, vanilla, and quick oats. Spoonfuls dropped onto wax paper set into dense, fudgy cookies in about 30 minutes without the oven ever being turned on. The critical variable was the boil time. Too short and the cookies stayed sticky forever. Too long and they crumbled into dry little pucks. 1 minute exactly. The 1970s learned this the hard way.
22. Cream cheese. Stuffed celery. While ants on a log packed peanut butter into celery, the grown-up version of this concept used cream cheese mixed with finely chopped olives or dried chives piped into the celery groove with a little spoon, or, if the hostess was feeling ambitious, a pastry bag. These appeared on relish trays at the holiday gatherings and dinner parties, nestled alongside radish roses and carrot sticks cut into decorative shapes. The relish tray was an art form in the 1970s. It communicated something about the host. It said I had the time and the intention to make something look nice before you arrived. Cream cheese stuffed celery was the quiet anchor of that presentation. Underrated then, completely forgotten now. 23. Popcorn balls. Every Halloween in the 1970s produced popcorn balls from at least 3 or 4 households on every block, before people got nervous about homemade treats, and the whole tradition quietly died out. You'd make a sugar syrup from corn syrup, sugar, butter, and a little vanilla. Cook it to the soft ball stage, then pour it over a giant bowl of freshly popped popcorn, tossing quickly before it set. With buttered hands, working fast before the syrup hardened, you'd press the coated popcorn into balls that set firm enough to hold their shape, but stayed slightly chewy inside. Wrapped in squares of wax paper and twisted at the ends, these were handed out to trick-or-treaters with genuine pride. They represented hours of work, and they tasted like it. 24. Jell-O with fruit, suspended inside. The 1970s relationship with gelatin was deeply committed, and I say that with complete respect. Every church potluck, every family gathering, every neighborhood cookout had at least one gelatin mold sitting on the table, and nobody thought this was strange because it wasn't strange. It was Tuesday. The simple version involved preparing a box of Jell-O, letting it cool until it was the consistency of unbeaten egg whites, then folding in whatever canned fruit was available. Mandarin oranges in orange gelatin, fruit cocktail in cherry gelatin, crushed pineapple in lime gelatin. Poured into a mold or a simple bowl and left overnight in the refrigerator, it emerged the next day as a shimmering, colorful snack that children found genuinely magical. The 1970s deserves more credit for this. 25. Crackers with canned smoked oysters. Now, I know this one is going to divide the room, but hear me out. Canned smoked oysters on a plain saltine cracker was a snack that appeared at adult gatherings throughout the 1970s with the confidence of something that knew exactly what it was.
The smoky, briny, intensely flavored oysters came in small flat tins packed in oil, and you drained them and place 1 or 2 on each cracker with a small squeeze of lemon juice if you were being elegant about it. Children were not expected to enjoy these. Children were expected to observe them from a safe distance and understand that someday, when they were older, their taste would develop accordingly. That is a reasonable position, and I stand by it.
26. Potato chip and French onion dip sandwich. Yes, this is exactly what it sounds like. And yes, it belongs on this list. 2 slices of white bread, a layer of French onion dip spread like mayonnaise across both inner surfaces, and a generous handful of plain potato chips laid flat between them and pressed together gently so the chips didn't all shoot out the back when you bit down. The dip acted as the adhesive, while the chips provided an explosion of crunch that no conventional sandwich filling could match. Children invented this, or possibly a very tired adult invented this on a Friday afternoon when the refrigerator was mostly empty. Either way, it represents creative problem solving of the highest order, and it tasted spectacular. 27. Brown sugar and butter on bread, related to the bread and butter sandwich of lean times, but arriving in the 1970s with slightly more confidence in the pantry. A thick slice of soft white bread spread with real softened butter, then covered with brown sugar packed into the butter surface until it formed a caramel-like layer. Sometimes a pinch of cinnamon went on top. Sometimes it didn't need anything. The brown sugar had a depth that white sugar couldn't match, with those hints of molasses, creating something that tasted almost like a caramel glaze on plain bread. Working families made this as an after-school snack when the cookie jar was empty, and the budget didn't extend to store-bought treats. It cost almost nothing, and it tasted like someone loved you. 28. Canned Vienna sausages on toothpicks. Vienna sausages came in small, squat cans, 7 or 8 tiny pale sausages packed in broth, and in the 1970s they were considered perfectly acceptable party food when pierced with a toothpick and arranged in a plate. I am not here to defend this. I am here to document it accurately. The sausages had a soft, almost custardy texture and a mild, salty flavor that paired with yellow mustard for dipping, or with the small cocktail toothpicks that had the little cellophane ruffles on the end, which were the true mark of a sophisticated hostess. Children ate them directly from the can before the party. Adults pretended this didn't happen. Everyone understood the arrangement. 29. Peanut butter and honey rice cakes.
By the late 1970s, rice cakes had arrived in American grocery stores as part of a growing awareness of lighter eating options. They were dry, slightly cardboard-flavored rounds that required considerable imagination to enjoy on their own. The 1970s solved this problem by spreading them with peanut butter and drizzling them with honey,
creating a snack that had crunch without the guilt that white bread had apparently started to acquire by that point in the decade.
The peanut butter sank slightly into the porous surface of the rice cake, creating a unified bite. The honey ran off the edges and onto your fingers, which was an accepted occupational hazard. Health food had arrived in the American home kitchen, and it was doing its level best. 30. Homemade caramel corns. This was the snack that made the whole neighborhood appear at your door. Caramel corn made from scratch on the stovetop started with a batch of freshly popped popcorn, plain and unsalted, spread across a large buttered roasting pan. The caramel itself was made from butter, brown sugar, corn syrup, and a pinch of salt, cooked to a deep amber color, then pulled from the heat and stirred with a little baking soda that made the whole mixture foam and lighten before you poured it over the popcorn. Into a low oven for an hour, stirred every 15 minutes, so every single kernel got coated and the whole pan dried into a crunchy, lacquered, deeply caramelized mass that cooled on the counter, while everyone in the house found reasons to walk through the kitchen, broken into pieces and shared from a big paper bag. This was the 1970s at its absolute best. Simple ingredients, real effort, something that tasted like more than the sum of its parts. These 30 snacks tell you something important about the 1970s that a lot of food history tends to skip over. This was a decade of real economic pressure. Gas prices were climbing, grocery budgets were shrinking, and families were making do in ways that required genuine creativity. And yet, the snacks that came out of those kitchens weren't sad. They weren't apologies. They were imaginative and generous and full of the kind of care that turns simple ingredients into something memorable. A bag of potato chips and a bowl of onion dip, a plate of deviled eggs dusted with paprika, a tray of pigs in a blanket pulled from the oven just as company arrived. None of these things cost very much. All of them meant something. What I find most remarkable is how many of these recipes have completely vanished despite being genuinely delicious. Not because something better replaced them, but simply because we got busy and then we got distracted and then we forgot to teach the next generation how to make them. That's what this channel is for. Grandma Betty's recipes exist because these foods deserve to be remembered, not just as nostalgia, but as real cooking. Practical, affordable, full of heart cooking that anybody can do. So, the next time you find yourself staring into the pantry at 3 in the afternoon, wondering what to put together, think about these 30 snacks. Think about all the 1970s mothers who stood in that same spot with a tighter budget and a longer list of people to feed, and came up with something wonderful anyway. If this video brought back any memories, I want to hear about them in the comments. Tell me which snack you grew up with. Tell me which one you're going to make this week. And if you haven't subscribed to Grandma Betty's recipes yet, now is the time. We've got decades of forgotten food left to uncover together. I'll see you in the next one.